folks, on today's episode, we've got Coach Audrey Dufresne of the Hard to Kill programs talking about mobility and why it's important to you and making sure that you stay mobile moving into the future. Stay tuned. Did you know that just for listening to the Hard to Kill podcast, you're going to get some perks? Yeah, that's right. The first perk that comes to mind is getting some really good high quality meat in you. So if you head to butcherbox.ca, you can get some grass-fed, grass-finished beef that is just top notch. They got steaks, they got burgers, they got bones. They got everything you need in order to consume some high-quality meat and get some high-quality protein into you. So once you go to butcherbox.ca, on your first order, you can get $10 off by dropping the code MORROW10. That's MORROW 10, and get yourself some fresh, awesome meat delivered right to your house today and start 2021 with some awesome meat. Go get it. Hey, I'm going to fill you in on something. 70% of Canadians are vitamin D deficient. You need to get on that because more than likely you're deficient. And the reason why that's important is because vitamin D has been shown to help increase testosterone levels in men. But not only that, it helps reduce the severity of things like COVID-19 and respiratory disorders. How much do you need? You need about 3,000 IUs. The pills at the grocery store are not going to do it. We've only got about 250 in there. You got to be popping pills like a maniac. If you head to onnit.com, you can check out their vitamin D3 spray, and every spray is 250 IUs. I drink that stuff like nobody's business, like a baller in a club. So does my family, because I want to make sure that we have awesome vitamin D levels during the winter months here in Canada. So if you head to onnit.com and drop in MORROW into the coupon area for your purchase, you're going to get a nice little discount just for listening to the podcast. You're welcome, by the way. So head to onnit.com, drop in MORROW for all your purchases, not just vitamin D, and start living a healthier 2021 right away.
Welcome to the Hard to Kill podcast, the go-to podcast for military, LEO, and EMS professionals, sharing ideas and experiences from around the world to make you hard to kill. Here's your host, Dave Morrow.
Hello, everyone who's live with me today. I am using U headphones, so I hope this is working well. Bear with me, or let me know if you guys can't hear me. But for the ones of you who don't know me, I'm Audrey. I'm one of the coaches at Hard to Kill training programs. I'm also a student in athletic therapy at Concordia University, and I've been a coach for a couple years. So today I'm going to be doing another one of my Q&As to let you guys know about mobility and what the heck is mobility, because this is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and I find that people don't get a lot of information about what actually mobility is. Even though they know it's something that's important, they don't really know about it. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Before we get started, I just want to say good shout out to everyone who responded to our Athena program. We launched the Athena program last week. It's a program I designed for veteran women across Canada, and it was a huge success. We've had over 50 women put their hands up to train with us, and it's been incredible to see that the first time that we're launching this program, it's a total hit. So unfortunately, we could only we could only let 5 women into the program for the first month, and we're hoping that it's going to grow from here. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who asked for information, spread the word about it. It's a great program, completely funded by the Quebec Veteran Foundation and the Barry F. Lorenzetti Foundation as well. So we're hoping that it's going to keep working well. Also, if you are listening to this and you're not part of the Facebook group, maybe you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure to go find us on Facebook. So just type in Hard to Kill, HRD number 2 and kill on Facebook, and you'll find us right away, the first link that pops up. So, I'm going to get started. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about mobility and defining what mobility is, and talk about why it's important. So, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because mobility is key in order for us to perform our activities, our training, our fitness, and our sports without injury, and also to perform well. So as I go through this, you guys will see why we wouldn't be performing well if we don't have good mobility, and why it could lead to injury. Also, another reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I was having a conversation with one of my clients recently who mentioned to me, yeah, I do a lot of mobility, I foam roll almost every day. And that kind of made me realize, okay, yeah, that's what most people have in mind when they think mobility. They think, oh, yeah, foam roll, I got it down. I'm doing my mobility straight, but it's a lot more than just foam rolling and stretching. So hearing that from clients, a little, almost every time I meet new clients, it made me realize, yeah, I really need to address this and talk about what mobility means. So we're going to divide this in three sections. The first thing I'm going to do is define mobility. Then I'm going to talk about the three main components that compose mobility. And I'm going to talk about some tangible examples so that you can visualize what I'm talking about. So first of all, definition of mobility. It's the ability to move freely, and it's the ability of a joint to be able to move through its range of motion freely. And how does that joint move through the range of motion? Is it smooth? Is it grinding? Is it limited? Or is it over the range? So all of that is terms that we can use to define mobility, but really what it means is the ability to move freely, ability for a joint to move through a range of motion. That's the basic definition. The three main components that make up mobility, and the reason why, I feel like the reason why people get it wrong lies here. Most people who do mobility by just foam rolling or just stretching, they're missing the most important part. They're missing the fact that to create lasting changes, it's not by just releasing tension in muscles, and it's not just by releasing tightness in muscle that you're going to make lasting changes. Because as soon as you go back to whatever you're doing, for example, it's playing hockey or it's running marathons, all those tensions are going to come back up because you didn't create new patterns for your body to move. You didn't create new patterns in your joints. All you did is release the tension that's going to come back as soon as you put that same load on your body. So that's where the key lies in the three components of mobility. So the first component is the actual amplitude, the actual range that a joint can go through. So for example, you look at your elbow. If you extend your elbow all the way, you got a nice 180 degrees. And then if you bend it, that's the range of motion. Then the second component is the motor control over that joint. So for your joint to be able to move through its range of motion, yes, it's about the anatomy of that joint. Yes, it's about the muscles that might be restricting the range. It might be about the joint capsule, but it's also about the motor control. What that is your brain being able to tell to your joint, I need you to move there, from there to there. I need you to move through that whole range. And if your brain is not able to have that motor control over it, you're not going to get better mobility. Your brain needs to be able to connect and ask your body to move into that range. That's the second component. The third component is being able to generate strength in that range of motion. So once you've eliminated all of the tension and the anatomical restrictions around the joint in the first component, and then in the second component, you've taught your brain to have a motor connection, then you need to be able to generate strength. So you need to train your muscles to move your joint into that range of motion in control. So that's the third component. And that's where most people, like I said earlier, just get it wrong, because as soon as they just release everything, they think, okay, yeah, my mobility is good. Because if you're doing, for example, foam rolling, you'll feel some type of immediate feedback. You'll feel some type of immediate effect, because you will feel a little bit looser, and you might see short-term improvements in, for example, your squat or your ankle dorsiflexion. But that's not going to stay. It's not going to maintain if you don't teach your brain that motor control, and if you don't build your strength in that range. So now I'm going to talk to you guys about an example of this so that you can visualize what those three components of mobility are. The first thing, let's imagine that we are stuck with tight hips. I think a lot of us tend to have a lot of tightness in the hips, or stiffness in the hip. That might be a better term. You might feel like you can't flex your hip as much as you'd like to. For example, if you're doing squats, being able to get that good flexion at the hips is really key. So let's say that's what we're working with right now. And let's go through those components. The first component, let's say you're having trouble flexing your hip, would be maybe to do some foam rolling, maybe to use a lacrosse ball to really go and get all those trigger points out of your muscles surrounding the hip joint and really release the tension in those muscles. You might even use one of those really thick bands that you'll find sometimes people use for pull-ups. You can hook that in the groin and really do self-mobilization with that. So stretch the joint capsule. So that's some of the things you could do for tight hips in the first component of your mobility. But then the second component is where you need to teach your body to bring that hip into more flexion after you've released all the tension. So what that could be, really, really basic and simple, would be laying on your back and just bring your knee to your chest without using your hands. So just your leg, bringing your knee to your chest and bringing it back down. Bring your knee to your chest, bringing it back down. So that's a very simple example of an exercise that will teach your brain and teach your body, okay, I need my hip to go all the way there once I've released all the tension in the first component. Then the third component, once you've worked on releasing the tension, once you've worked on active range of motion by lying on your back and bringing your hip into flexion, we would have to work on strength. So strengthening the muscles in that range, strengthening that movement. So if we're sticking with hip flexion, it could be the same exact thing of laying on your back, bring your knee to your chest, but this time you have a resistance band pulling your knee away from you. So you have that much more resistance when you bring your knee to your chest. That could be a simple one, and then you do a couple of repetitions, or it could be also doing a low squat where you're really controlling the weight down and trying to go all the way at the bottom of your range and coming back up. So those are the three components that people need to keep in mind when they're working on mobility. That for it to last, for it to make a real change, it needs some type of new pattern, some new control in your brain and your body. It won't just be about releasing the muscles, what's tangible. There's also a whole neural part of it to it. And again, I just gave a brief example here, but if ever you guys need more examples, other parts of the body, like I mentioned ankles earlier, it could be shoulder, it could be upper back. Feel free to send me a message or drop in the comments here any advice that you need concerning that. And by the way, don't hesitate to ask any questions about mobility at this time. That's what I'm here for while I'm live. If not, don't hesitate to also post them later. I'll answer them later, no problem. But yeah, that's what I got for you guys today in terms of mobility. I hope this makes it a little bit more clear about what you need to do when a trainer tells you, yeah, you got to work on that mobility, or when you hear, YouTubers talk about, yeah, work on that mobility for better squats. Like, you have a better picture now of what that actually means, because that term gets thrown around too much without explanation. Okay, so we actually have a question now. Let's see. Okay, so Chris is asking, can too much mobility be bad or counterproductive? Okay, that's a good one. So I feel like I can answer this in two different ways. The first way I can answer this question is having too much mobility a bad thing? For example, being hypermobile, could that be a bad thing? So yes, being hypermobile is not good for you. So that means being hypermobile, meaning that your joint actually goes out of what the normal amplitude is for that joint, and that can actually lead to injuries. If you think about, for example, being hypermobile in the shoulder, and you're doing overhead snatches and you're having a lot of weight in that barbell, but your shoulder can't stabilize itself because it just goes past that range, you can imagine what could happen to that shoulder, right? Like you could drop your barbell wrong and shoulder could sublux, it could rip the labrum in the shoulder. So definitely too much mobility when it comes to inherent mobility in the joint. Yes, it can be a bad thing. And the second way I feel like I could answer that question is by thinking, can doing too much mobility work be bad? I think that's another way we could interpret that. And the quick answer for that, I would tend to say no, because for the majority of the population, the problem is not being hypermobile, it's being hypomobile, so not having enough mobility. So doing too much mobility for the majority of the population is not an issue because most people are lacking, okay? So even if you're gonna go out there and work on your hips for an hour, a couple times a week, that's usually not a bad thing. And most people who know that they're hypermobile, most people that know that they have lax joints, like they know. So you'll see oftentimes it's more women, you'll have hyperextended elbows and shoulders that are a little bit loose. So those people know, and those people know not to go work on more mobility in those joints. That's not good. You don't want to do that. You want to do the opposite. You want to stabilize those hypermobile joints. But like I said, the majority of the population, they're going to be more stiff than loose. So doing too much mobility is not really a concern. Oh, hey girl, my friend is on. Thanks for supporting. So yeah, it's good to see that a few people got on today. I'm glad I could answer some questions. I think that's all I have right now. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, guys. As I said, I'm a coach with the Hard to Kill programs. My email, if you need to reach me, if you got more personal questions that you don't necessarily want to post in this live, my email is Audrey, Audree, at davemorrow.net, or you can also find me on Facebook if you're in the group and just send me a message. So I hope this was very informative for you guys, and I hope you'll be back next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find out more about training, nutrition, and mindset at davemorrow.net. Be sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram at Dave Morrow PT. And don't forget, strong people are hard to kill.